When I think about the future of my kids stepping out into the world, I get worried. Not because they're not smart, not because they don't work hard, but because I already see the system training them the wrong way. Kids today are fed processed food in schools because it's cheap and convenient. They grow up tired, unfocused, overweight, and eventually sick. And poor health always means poor wealth. Given zero education on personal finances, they learn about mitochondria, the Battle of 1812, and how to level up frog, but nobody teaches them how taxes work, how money works. Nobody teaches them how debt compounds and how banks profit from them every single day. They are taught, they are prepared to be employees, never owners. We train our kids to follow instructions, not build assets. They learn how to use an iPad even before they learn what interest is. And then one day they graduate at 18 and we throw them into the rat race with a smile. Just go out there and be successful. People think that US is the number one economy, and it is. If you look at the numbers by GDP at the country level, it is the number one economy in the world. But for an average American, does it feel like number one at all? Here are some grim statistics about everyday citizens. About half of Gen Z and Millennials are living paycheck to paycheck, according to a survey in 2024. Making situation worse, 43% of Gen Zs have taken on either a part-time or a full-time paying job in addition to their primary job. Nearly half of the employees report that a job is just about money. So 47% of the employees reported feeling that a job is just about money and nothing else, a significant increase from 36% in 2019, while in the same period, the employees willing to work harder dropped from 57% in 2019 to 51% in 2024. This shift seems to have occurred after the COVID-19 pandemic, during which work became less of a priority for many amidst the uncertainty and turmoil. This rat race is not accidental. This is by design. And there's no better example of the structure than the banking system itself. Let's see an example. Let's say you deposit $100 of your savings in the bank. What banks actually do is they actually just hold $10 as reserve, and they instead lend out $90 to another person. Now this person goes out there in the economy and spends somewhere, and maybe some other person gets hold of that $90 and eventually goes to a bank, and then what the bank does again is they just hold $9, but then again they invest $81. So this cycle just keeps continuing and repeats itself, and then eventually a $100 bill can be invested up to 10 times more to $1,000. So this is basically the concept of fractional reserves in the banking system. Now we think that the bank is actually holding on to our money, and if you go to the bank to get your $100 bill, you will get it, unless there's a bank run. Now here's the interesting part. banks, they earn interest from this $100, but they also earn interest from this $90. They also earn interest from this $81. So banks essentially are printing money out of thin air. They take none of the risk, you take all the risk, you work hard, you work your ass off, and then it's the bank printing money just out of thin air. Is that even fair? And that's exactly why an average person feels trapped, because you're playing the game at level 1 while the banks are playing at a level 50 with a cheat code. And the worst part of this is banks only offer you an umbrella on a bright sunny day, not on a gloomy rainy day. Many gurus on YouTube or professors or investment managers, they typically recommend one of these investment ideas on how you can actually catch up with inflation and just trying to escape the trap of the system, right? Stock markets, savings account or CDs, certificate of deposits, 401k saving accounts, invest in real estate. But let's examine, right? Does this really work? So if you talk about the stock market, 90% of the retail traders never make any profit in the stock market. To just think about that. And I will say, still try to learn investing in the stock market, but it's really a disciplined approach that you have to develop over many years, and just have a very, very modest exposure in the beginning and try to build a discipline around that. Only then you can fall not within this 90%, and you can actually fall within that 10% people who actually make money from the stock market. So for beginners, I don't think investing in the stock market, and in today's valuation in 2025 where it's sky high, I think it's a very, very risky suggestion for people to go out there invest in stock market. And they say, when recession hits, go after growth stocks, and when the economy gets worse, those companies will just adjust their prices, and they will be able to catch up on their profits, and so your stock will eventually go up. But who knows? It took Japan's stock market almost 34 years from the peak of 1989 to catch up to where it was in 1989, and it just happened very, very recently. Who knows? America is the next. Now, if you talk about savings accounts, I think they're okay. Today, they're offering around 4 or 5% in savings account. It's pretty modest. But the real thing is they don't pay you interest higher than the actual inflation, because the actual inflation in the market is much higher than the reported inflation numbers. And banks just theoretically can never offer you more in interest than the actual inflation rate in the market. So even though you may be catching up a little bit, but you're still losing your money. You're still losing value on your money. Now, if you talk about real estate, I think of all these options, real estate is the best one, in my opinion, especially if you are investing in a real estate in a house for your primary residence purpose. But the downside is it comes with a debt trap that will keep you trapped for the next 15, 20 or 30 years. Now they're even talking about 50 years, and that's just ridiculous. I think that just needs another dedicated episode of its own. The reason why this could be good, even though it's debt, is because I'm going to give you my own example. So I got a house in 2022 for $400K, and in my area, I was paying in rent about $2,500 per month. And my monthly mortgage for a 400K house came out to be about, and that was after a 20% down payment, came out to be just a little above $2,500 per month. So it's a no-brainer, right? And yes, you might ask the thing about property taxes, and in the place where I live, it's insanely high. It's around 2% property tax. Obviously, you're going to have additional utility bills compared to if you live in an apartment. Then you have maintenance. So even after covering all of that additional cost, I still net about $1,000 a month in principal equity. So instead of just handing out $2,500 to somebody else and let them build equity on their house, now I'm at least building $1,000 a month in equity in my house. So in that sense, it's good. But I don't think that's enough to escape the trap, right? You're kind of managing it, but you can't quite escape it.